My name is Jerome F. Thompson. I moved here from Maryland, which is outside of Washington, D.C. I came to Ghana in 2000 for the first time. Fell in love with the place and the people. It's good to come home to see lots and lots of my own people. And that was what the selling point to me between here and Senegal, but Ghana won out.
Okay, I'm Jerry Johnson. I've been here about 16 years too, the same as Jerome and Willie. I've been traveling in Africa for about 25 years, mainly West Africa. And I'm a Garveyite, so I felt like somehow we needed to come back and try to figure out how to build something and how to do something and how to build some kind of power base in Africa, because I think, as Garvey said, we're going to need a power base somewhere on the African continent if we're going to have protection and opportunities for the race globally. So that's kind of the foundational thought that I came with, and we can talk a little bit later about, you know, how we may try to make that functional.
My name is Willie Austin. My working career, born and raised in Alabama, but spent most of my working career in Washington, D.C. and Maryland. My first trip to Africa was Senegal. That was what I planned to see. I didn't know where I wanted to stay, but I knew I wanted to stay in Africa. So I visited several other African countries. And I settled on Ghana, English-speaking country, even though I love Senegal. But I kind of felt really at home in Africa because it was, Ghana because it's English speaking. And I've been coming and going, like almost 3 years. I spent like 5 years in Accra, stayed there, built a home here in Prom. And I've been here 15 years permanently. And I was self-employed back in D.C. So I brought a little of my expertise here, and I did a little real estate. I have a few vacation home houses, and which works out good for me, which kept me busy at the time, and still keeping me busy. But for why I sell mainly in America, I was doing okay, but it was something that was missing. It was something missing. You have the big houses, the cars and everything, but it was something missing. I went to the Caribbean and I saw how they interact, and black people running things and everything, which really, I said, wow, if it's like this here in the island, what would it be like in Africa? So I started making the trip, came to Africa, and came with Radio 1, Kathy Hughes, 300 of us came, and it was, I knew then from day one I would live here. I knew when I got off that plane, like the ancestors brought me home, and I started making plans, and I'm here, and I feel very comfortable here. I got a family here, and married to a Ghanaian, and have a child, adopted two, and this is good for me. It's good for me at this stage of my life. I had to wait until I retired, but at this stage of my life, it's good for me. My motto is still good. A bad day in Africa is better than a good day in America for me at this stage of my life.
The police stop you in the States. You don't know whether your child gonna make it home or not. And you know how they are, whether you're an adult or whether you're a child. And because you know that policeman, he's a white or whatever, and he have no love for you. Here, if the police stop you, he's happy. But one thing I can say, he's not gonna kill me. He's not gonna shoot me. He's not gonna abuse me. But back in the States, you living with that constant fear. When you hear that siren and that policeman pull over, you don't know what's gonna happen. You don't know whether your child will come home or not. Here, you don't have to worry about that.
or parents who care about their children when they go out for whatever. A lot of them don't really rest at night until they hear them come through that door. Because when they hear them come through the door, they realize that they're home. But in many instances, they don't get rest. They're always, under pressure, what's going on with my child or what have you. And that's terrible to live that way, I can remember when Willie and I was living in Reggie Manuel's space at his home. And we were on our way out one night to go to a club. And after we got up to the end of the street, there were two young ladies standing there. And so they flagged us down and asked us where were they going. And we said, well, we were going to a club in Osu. So the young lady said, oh, we're trying to get her over to her uncle's house because her uncle and aunt need her help with her. The young lady just got in the car with us. The other one stayed there. We looked at one another. It blew my mind because she was not afraid. She knew that it's like she knew that we weren't going to bother her, hurt her, and we weren't. But you couldn't do that in the States. You cannot do that in the States. So Willie and I talked about it all the time. We looked at it, did you see what just happened? Are we for real or what's going on here? But that's what happens when you're home with your people.
There's a lot.
See, it's the same thing as what we call a trade-off. You might miss that big house and that nice car and everything like that, but you can still have that here. But the trade-off here, you got peace of mind.
Yes.
You got peace of mind, my brother. And that's what I got now. I got peace of mind. In the back of the state, the stress factor will kill you. Here, I'm stress-free. I am stress-free.
I didn't know what it was until I came here and I got rid of it.
That's an interesting point. It's almost like you're carrying a weight around, but you don't know you're carrying it until you're not carrying it.
That's right.
And one day, you look up and you go, wow, how was I carrying all of that, and it's not, it's kind of invisible, but it's heavy.
And it's detrimental to
you don't really know what it's like not to carry it until you get rid of it. And you ask yourself, how was I walking around with that, carrying that anvil, all of that time? And that's a big thing to a lot of us. And, we've seen it over and over again, even sometimes when you go around the Ghana and you see a beautiful place that may be up in the mountains somewhere, it could be in the central region, it could be in the northern region. And you could just as easily move there and be comfortable as, say, a white New Yorker moving to Utah if he liked the place. But if you're in the U.S., we might go to Utah and look around and see it's beautiful. We're not going to move there.
We know it
what I mean? And so it's kind of like you have a full range on the continent. Going to a small place that's, nobody's around and enjoying that and still being in the majority, or being in the city, But you don't really have those same options in the U.S. They say you do, but if, quality of life is so poor in some of these areas for black people, you really don't have those options.
And the stress factor. You walk into a restaurant in the States, and especially a white people, everybody turn around and look at you like you ain't supposed to be here. Here you walk in, nobody pay you no mind. You're comfortable. You're home. You can sit down and enjoy your meal and everything because everybody look like you.
Yeah, anonymity has a lot of benefits that people don't realize they have until you get them, and then you say, wow, that's cool.
Ghana was the only English-speaking country that I visited. Like I said, Senegal was the other country that I'd gone to. And here I just felt comfortable. There was something about the place and the people. When I first saw them, just to be around a group of people that looked like you, that spoke English, that they understood what you were trying to say to them. And even in Senegal, people spoke English with you, but French was really more like their native tongue or what have you, as opposed to the culture and language. And Ghana was just an easy place. It was peaceful. You didn't have to worry about crime or things of this nature. It was just, I don't know, it's just like being in your parents, under your parents were taking care of you and in a community that you felt very comfortable in. And I have found this place for myself. And it was just good to be here. And that's one thing that made me feel so good about it, is because I felt that comfort here that I did when I was growing up in my parents' home and in the community which I grew up in. So it's been a beautiful place for me. I didn't make a mistake. I know I made one of the best decisions in my life when I moved here and built my home. I met a lot of African American friends, as well as Ghanaian friends. Like Jerry, Willie, we were good friends, and there were more of us. We had the African American Association of Ghana, which was put together by African American women that had married and moved here. But the organization is expanding now to other people that are coming. And it's just a good mix for me, period. And now I'm trying to get friends and family to come over here. My goddaughter's been here, my cousin a couple of times. My nephew's supposed to be coming in September. So I'm excited about that. Yeah.
Well, for me, moving to Ghana was, it was really more like looking for a place that I thought I could move around in other places in Africa from. So to me, it was supposed to be more of a base. Now, I haven't traveled as much as I had hoped after I got here. You know, I'm married with 2 children, so you know some of the realities set in. But I brought my parents here at different times, and I thought I would be bringing a lot more relatives and friends here. Although now they are actually starting to come, and so it's a lot easier when people come to visit when everyone speaks English. And I was learning a little pidgin French, you know, when I was in Senegal and all. But so that was the main reason Ghana. It wasn't so much that there was so much more, you know, for me it was just being in Africa somewhere. So that was the easiest choice. Now, once I got here, as the brothers here know, you know, we had some idealistic angles that we had looked at things, thinking maybe more you could have more impact, you know, than maybe we had at the beginning. I know in my case, I was bringing a lot of books and a lot of videos and trying to have these kind of discussions. I was going into the schools quite a bit. And then I started going into the schools with the younger students quite a bit. And I just realized that, you know, there was a lot of information, a lot of perspective that you really don't get in the schools in terms of African history and in terms of just, you know, what we've been through as a people and maybe what we need to go through to rectify the situation. So that's how I came up with this idea of having an ancestral wall, African ancestral wall. So rather than to go into all of the schools, which is logistically not easy, I can now have the children come here on field trips or excursions. And it's grown a bit now, you know, people are coming from outside, but the main function really is to try to be a part of the solution and try to start socializing our youngsters in such a way that they have higher expectations and more confidence. And they're going to need a lot of confidence and a lot of high expectations to deal with what I think is an onslaught coming in the next several years as the world continues to shrink. So, okay, what you were talking about a little earlier about the youngsters and whether or not you would recommend that they spend time, say, in both places. Well, you know, that's okay, I guess, if they have the opportunity. But the reality of the situation is 90+% of African youth are going to grow up here, and if they're going to have anything serious in life, I don't mean just material things, but if they're going to be a part of something that means something, we're going to have to develop where we are. So, sure, maybe some small percent can go overseas and pick up some things and come back, but for the most part, we're going to have to build on what we have, build on what we know. We're going to have to develop our confidence and culture to where, you know, we're not looking so much outside for answers, but, you know, we take care of these things where we are. Back to the wall just a moment. I've seen already some transformation in some of the young people who have come through once or twice, or I see them again around town or somewhere in Tema, because there's so many things that they don't know. I mean, just the school curriculum alone will disempower you if you're an African youngster, because there's so much there about Greek and Roman and everybody else's history, giving you the idea, even Egyptian history, and we know there's no doubt anymore that the ancient Africans, Egypt, were African people during the time of all of the great things, pyramids and civilizations and mathematics and all of the rest. However, in their textbooks even today, they give the impression that it was just the opposite. So we really have to spend some time, I think, quiet time among ourselves and our children and our schools, our curriculum and all the way through, in our television, all of our social media and regular media, reminding our children who they are and of their potential. And once you start doing that, I think the appetite to just get out is going to be a lot less, because a lot of that has to do with just feeling that everything outside is superior to what you have. Now, when you go out and some of the things work, infrastructure is built up. But what is infrastructure other than what people decide they want to do? If you have the confidence, you'll build your own infrastructure. And if you have the confidence, you won't allow other people to come and derail you from building the things you need, not just physically, infrastructure-wise, but in terms of community, nation, and having power relative to the other people in the world. So these things like the African Ancestral Wall and other initiatives that we and other people are trying to start are really trying to go after that. We're really trying to get out of this mindset that we have to leave, we have to be connected with something outside. Because basically what most people do is go outside, make a little money, build a mansion back here, and then just come back and sit down. I've seen this for 16 years. Well, I'm not sure how far ahead that's moving all of us. But if you go back with the idea, seriously idea, that you could just kind of pick up a few things and come back and really get involved with strengthening the African continent, maybe there's something to that. So we're not telling everyone you got to go anywhere. We're saying we have what we need right here. And then, as we talk about all the time, if we didn't have what we needed right here, and the airports wouldn't be full of Indians, Chinese, and everyone else. So there must be something here worthwhile. It's just a matter of what we do with it.
You find a lot of celebrities coming. They get a lot of people interested in coming, youth and older. When you start taking them to see the Cape Coast, to see the dungeon, as it's called, and when you start seeing these things, seeing their history and everything, I think all that's good. That makes people really interested. And then they tell the stories. You're seeing people, they actually get very emotional when they go into that dungeon and everything. And people, that make people really want to come and see and connect to your ancestors. I always say talk to the ancestors, and everything. And I think when I went to Senegal, and like Jerry was saying, he felt something. What I felt is like the ancestors say, I brought you home. And I felt it. From that day on, I started building to make Africa my home. It took me about 10 years, but now I'm trying to leave something for my nieces and nephews back in the States. I'm leaving a home. They will always know that they have a home in Africa. When things get rough in the U.S., which it will get, they know our uncle left a home in Africa, so I can come visit anytime I want to. So a lot of my friends, we come and plug into getting connected to the continent, And I have a daughter, and she's 13, and I take her. We just got back from Victoria Falls, seeing that. And also, like Sheriff just mentioned, April, we going to see Egypt, to see the pyramids, to do a cruise down the Nile, where you can see that the, our history is there. So, every little bit we do to try to bring people back. An ancestral wall, and just doing the year of return. A lot of people have gotten really interested just because of this. So my thing is to do everything I possibly can to talk to people to invite them. I invite so many of my friends, come and stay with me. You don't have to worry about the hotel, come and stay with me. And a lot of us take us up on it. So things are better. This year return is opening up a lot of people's eyes who really want to come and experience it for themselves. And coming to his wall, he always have a group here. And we come up and we talk to them. And they come and see. So all this is good. And it's gonna get better. Because it's all on YouTube. When you see Steve Harvey and Danny Glove and all the rest of them. And Roland Martin.
Yeah.
All that is telling people we're missing something, so we should go and see it. So it's good. It's good. I think it's great. You know what I mean? I thank the president for doing the year of return. Now I'm gonna be going into many years of return, and that's gonna bring more Africans to come. African Americans to come and see and dispel the myth of what they have heard and what they have learned in school. That's
My
my take.
parents always said when I was growing up, you can always come home. And that's true, and that's what I try to tell the people back in the States. You can always come home. And that's what you need to do. Once you come back here, it's all over, it's a done deal. You want to be here. You can't not allow yourself not to be here.
Well, the reality is, though, if you're coming in and you don't have pension, which I didn't, but and a lot of people don't, it's a little bit different than those who do have pensions because they can kind of keep that lifestyle up. But if you're younger, like I was 43, you have to either have something, bring something, or you really have to have a niche and a plan, because it's very difficult to get things going the way you like them to get them going, because the rules are different. There is a lot of inefficiencies, we'll call them, in the system. And you're going to have to know how to deal with that and learn how to deal with it. That's why I was getting to the point of, why are you coming to Africa? And I think that's a really critical question, because if you're coming for fun or for stretching your money and these things we talked about earlier, that's one thing. But if you're coming to try to build something for the future of the group, then you have a different level of determination, and you might be willing to weather, I hate these words, sacrifice, but you may just be more determined to get through, even though there's a lot of obstacles. So if you're really coming because you're looking at your grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and saying we have to have something with power of our own, you'll figure out how to weather the storm. If you're looking for a good time, or when you run out of money, or you get burned once or twice, you'll be ready to run back to Los Angeles, New York, or Washington.
Yeah, and most people, when they come over here, I think it's good when on excursion, maybe for vacation, like many people have come over here now, and they see that it's nothing to fear, that they see what's all this here. Even if they don't have pension, the younger people today with this IT, if they know IT, they can live here and work there, They can make their own employment opportunities because there's so much that's needed here on the continent. So it's up to them, once they get here, if they see an opportunity to put their heads together with their friends back in the States or here, and do what's needed for here.
How much do you think this place would cost if you have built it in the States?
If I had built this in the States, somewhere about $600,000 to $800,000 probably.
The whole house and everything in it?
Well, just the house itself almost. It would be worth that in the States now, put it that way. And being where it is, this close to the ocean, be millions of dollars. Millions of dollars.
Well, talking about the things of, just a communal society, Dr. John Henry Clark used to say, in African languages, there was no word for old folks' home because we never threw away mother and father or grandma or granddaddy. no word for prison because there was no need to lock up a bunch of people. So these are all kind of concepts that, once your social fabric begins to unravel, then you need a lot of old folks' homes, you need a lot of prisons and a lot of these things. So I think one of the things we need to do is go back and look at our own culture and our old culture and not try to copy someone else's because it's dysfunctional for them, so it's going to be dysfunctional for you. And I think that's one of the things we have to get back in touch with. I would say that for younger Ghanaians in the U.S., specifically, I think, or not Africans in general, I think they need to just try to get back as fast as possible with whatever they can muster, because I've seen over and over again in these years that I've been here, so many of them come back, and with the exception of that big house, they're actually kind of behind a lot of their peers, believe it or not. And so I think to get back into your roots and get back into your families and make Africa the place you want it to be. I mean, to come back and then just talk about how Wi-Fi sucks or this or that is not there. I mean, what does that mean? Because when you're in the US or you're in the UK, the place doesn't belong to you. So if it doesn't belong to you, then there's certain limitations that are just built in. So you take what belongs to you and get back on the job of building it up. And we may have to look at all these countries and all these European borders and all the rest of it. And we may even have to reconfigure all of this, but we're the people who can do it if we decide that's what needs to be done to build our power. So I ask all of the people out there not to get so caught up in how much money can you show when you get back to Ghana, but get the mindset of we have to build something, because this and the rest of the African continent is all you have. And if you sit down and let that get away from you, soon you realize that you're stranded people, even in your own land. So that's my message. But in terms of the social contracts that we used to have to one another, I think those can be rebuilt. I really do. We just have to know what they were, remember what they were. We have villages all over where there's a lot of remnants of it, so it's not all dead. I think it can all be rebuilt. We just have to have the confidence to do it.
And for as, remember, the thing in Africa, it's a village that raised a child. You'll find that here more so than you will in the States. You can be in the States and you'll never even hardly know your neighbor. You might see them, children walk by, they might wave and you might not. But here you get to know the children. So you're back almost into that village syndrome. And that's what's really good.
And we used to have it in the States too, because what people call the ghetto now, where the African Americans live, there was one little lady out there on the porch every day. She knew what you did. And if you did something wrong, by the time mom and dad got home, you was in trouble, because she'd tell. She cared about you in the community. And it wasn't that she was tattletaling on it. When you grow older and you look at what's happening with the young people now, because those older people died and everything has changed, kids are on crack and drugs and stuff like that. I could never put drugs in the home, and I lived in it. My mom would never have allowed us in the house. She'd check your book bag when you come home from school. So she'd tell you, don't bring anything here that your father and I didn't buy for you. And she meant it, But it's not happening anymore. We've taken on the way of the world. And parents don't have time for their children. They're buying them stuff. They don't need the stuff, they need you. They need what's inside you that will take them for a lifetime. I'm living on what my parents put inside me and in my head. That's worth more than anything that they ever bought me in my life. And they gave me every day, I think I got, but still, that's what I have inside of me. And I want to share it with other people, with other children. And younger people today that having children, whatnot, what are you going to do with your children? You need to be there for them. Otherwise, if the street raised them for you, you've lost them. You've lost them.
I want to make one more point, if you don't mind, having to do with, people outside of Africa, people inside Africa. I'm talking about black people, African people. There's something like 40 million African Americans, quote unquote. And I think the latest count is more than 1 billion black Africans on the African continent. So I looked at it one time, and that's like 25 to 26 times more black people here than there. And so I think we have this idea that the few trickling back and forth are really going to be the really ones making a big impact. Well, that may be, maybe they will make some impact, but the reality of the situation is the billion people that are here are going to decide the future of the black world. And now we can have input, we can have people going back and forth, but I really do feel like sometimes we're shortchanging the idea that, you know, most of our people, we have land, we have resources. And so to some extent, yes, we need help from all of the diaspora. But you know, we have what we need right here. And those African Americans or African Brazilians, whether they think they're connected to Africa or not, 50 to 100 years from now, I guarantee you, where 25, 26 of the group is where they're going to be. So their future, whether they know it or accept it or not, is the future of Africa. And so I think that's something that's hard to get inside a lot of people's minds, because they feel like their future is whatever the future of America is. Your future, if you're in the US or one of these other places, is really so closely tied to the future of Africa. You're just the only one who doesn't know it. The rest of the world knows it. So I think it's time to wake up and recognize that this is where, not necessarily your individual future is, but this is where the futures of the group is on this continent. And I think everyone should get on board and start building what we need.
They're letting dispel that myth about what Africa was and what it is. And that creating the interest of really maybe want to come and see, because it's a learning process. Because what they know is back there, and it's not productive. You know what I mean? You know, you got the police that's locking us up, the jails and everything. Here, you know, the crime is nothing like it is over there. Nothing. So, you know, you can come and let your child mind grow. And with this technology that you're doing and what's here, everybody's on YouTube and everything like that. Information is out there. So that gonna help dispel the myth too.
We're talking about bills and so forth. Here, even if I worked here now, had my own business and so forth, I wouldn't be stressed out because I would own my own home. When I came here, I built my own home. I brought my money with me, I built my own home. I don't pay property taxes and all that kind of stuff. If I was still living in a home that I lived in outside of Washington, D.C., I would be paying $8,000 to $10,000 a year in property tax. So that means if my pension wasn't large enough to take care of me and my house wasn't paid for, I would have to stay out and get a job until I'm 80 in order just to pay those property taxes. And they go up every year almost, you know. But here you don't have to worry about that. I built my home, and once I paid for it, that was it. It's over and done with. All I have to do is maintain it, you know, maintenance on it and so forth. But that's minimal compared to what you do in the state.
Jerome, I'm not sure you want to get on the camera and say you're not paying you. There's actually, but anyway, it's not much.
Let's go.
It was worth it for me to build it because I built it to where I wanted it, number one. And if you look in each room in the house has different ceiling designs in the ceiling. And the ceiling is bamboo and thatch, which, you know, I feel is beautiful because thatch and bamboo is something that's very common here in this country. And I wanted to use what was natural to the continent as opposed to coming with something like POP, they call it, that they do, which is for European and whatnot. This is Africa, and its beauty should be shown. As far as I'm concerned, my ceilings are beautiful, period, you know. Better than POP looking buildings and whatnot. On my great-grandparents, on my mother's side, these two are Slaters, Frederick and James Slater, here. These two are my mother's parents, John Henry Griffin and Georgiana Griffin, and he was a Methodist minister. These are the children of these two families here. My grandmother, these are her parents right here, the Griffins. My grandfather, those are his parents, they're the Slaters. These are this picture was taken at my grandparents' golden anniversary, which is in 1952. They got married in 1902. These are their daughters, which is my mother and her 3 sisters, the slave girls. This is my mother's picture here. This was taken at her 50th anniversary.
Where?
In 1988. They got married in 1938, my mother and father. This is my father's mother. I'm rehabbing this done. The salt water sort of took its toll on this one. This is her mother, which is my great-grandmother on my father's side. And I had this done in oil paint off here. And this is my father, not Obama, Samuel Thompson. And this is his grandmother and his mother. And the picture over top the door here are my father and I. And that was done in 1990.
Wow. Just a handsome gentleman.
Okay, as far as summary, I would just say that let's do everything we can to build what we have to have sovereignty and power for Black people in the future. And one way to do it, or one aspect, is creating the children we need to solve the problems that we have, where I say creating the Africans we need to solve the problems we have. And so that's one reason I think it's crucial that we focus on the youth. And so I hope you'll pick some of that up as you go through the ancestral wall.
I would like to say one thing. As you travel throughout, when you travel, one thing you see about white people, they got all their children with them. They expose them. We as Blacks, we never take our children. Take your children and see them. Bring them to Africa so they can see for themselves and everything. Expose them. That's right, I was just telling you, I just got my daughter back from Victoria Falls. We go and see Egypt. And every year I'm going to try to take her to see a different part of Africa. I ain't talking about Big Ben or Lady Time of Peace. I'm talking about Africa. You know, so take them and see and make them feel proud. And they can help dispel the myth also.
Yep, this is the Garden of Eden. Everybody talks about the Garden of Eden in the Bible and everything, but you look at Ghana, anything and everything you want for the world is here. And we need them to come back home and help us to manage this. And so that we can make it for our children and our family, our generations after us. Put things in place so that it takes care of us as we take care of it.
And they're coming. The Chinese are coming. The Lebanese are coming. The whites are being here. The French are being here. Everybody know what Africa has to offer except Black people. Come and see for yourself.
Yep.
There's some irony to the fact that you go to the airport and we're all rushing out and everybody else is rushing in. You know?
Yeah.
And by the time you come back, the person you met in the airport is you're gonna be asking him for a job in 15 or 20 years. So we need to wake up. All right, come see us at the African Ancestral Wall. We're talking about our ancestors, letting our youth and our people know what our strengths and capabilities were. The wall has, I think, 92 figures on it now, very large. I think you have some video of that. We're going to turn this into a center of consciousness. We want to make sure, primarily, that our youth know what man has done, man can do, as far as what Marcus Garvey told us. So come on to the wall. We'll be here. Everything's free. We don't have no excuse. Come on down. As Marcus Garvey says, up you mighty race, you can accomplish what you will. That is, you can accomplish what you decide to. And Kwame Nkrumah says he read all of these great European scholars, but the one that did the most to impact his motions and actions is the philosophies and opinions of Marcus Garvey. So when you hear the Black Star Line and all of these things in Ghana, remember, those came from Garvey. Two great men.